It is 1,000 degrees where I'm at right now, so if you see me sweating, that's why. Hello everybody, today we are talking about the biopsychology of color so that you can use color magic in your magical practice. My name is Ivy, I am the occultist on YouTube and on Instagram, and at the time of filming this, I mentioned this in my last video, but I just created an Instagram account this month, so I will drop the handle below. Feel free to add me on Instagram if you want. It is a brand new account and I'm really excited to connect with you all, so definitely add me there. But today we're talking about the biopsychology of color, and before we get into that, we need to discuss why there is so much variability from source to source when you look up color charts. If you've ever looked up color charts on the internet, or if you've looked in different books, a lot of authors or writers will say that a color is good for one thing, another author will say that that same color is good for something else. So there's a lot of variability and a lot of confusion around colors and how to use them in your magical practice. And in my observations, it seems that there are three things that make up color magic, or our perceptions on color magic. There are three reasons why these color charts vary from source to source. Now, the first reason is cultural associations. So depending on the culture that you live in, a certain color may mean a different thing to you than it does to someone else from another culture. For example, the color green is typically related to finances and money here in the United States, and that's typically because our money is literally the color of green. But if you go to other countries, obviously the color of their currency is not green, not always at least, and so they may use gold or orange to represent money or finances or prosperity. And in some other cultures, there may be a particular color that is good luck and another color that is bad luck. So these cultural associations can really kind of sway how we view color and how we use it in our magical practice. And I just wanted to address that first because although this video is on the biopsychology of color, how it physically relates to our biology and our psychology, I want to address the cultural associations because those are going to play a part in picking whatever color it is that you feel is best for your spell. Now, the second reason why color charts vary so much from source to source is from personal experiences. So you have the cultural associations, right, where certain colors are viewed a certain way in the culture that you live in. Now you have these personal associations and memories with each particular color. So let's say, for example, your grandma always used to wear the color yellow. Now if your grandma has passed on, you're trying to work with her as an ancestor, you could use the color yellow in your ancestral work. Now, the color yellow is not typically used in ancestral veneration, but it can be used if you have a personal connection to it. Most people would typically go for like the darker colors, you know, a lot of blacks and things like that. Black is technically not a color, but we'll get to that later in this video. But you see a lot of people using these darker colors in ancestral veneration to represent death and crossing over, etc. But if you have that personal experience with your grandma always wearing the color yellow and you want to connect with her, then using yellow in that ancestral veneration or that spell, whatever type of working that you're doing to connect with your grandma, is going to be really successful. So a lot of people have personal experiences and memories tied to particular colors. Now, if we have a color that's supposed to make us feel uplifted and happy, but you personally hate that color is not going to make you feel uplifted and happy because you hate it. So the personal experiences and the personal memories tied to each color are also going to play into, you'll want to factor that in when you're doing your spell work to really think about how these colors are associated with you, how they are associated with your culture, and then also how they are associated with the biopsychology. Now, the third reasoning why color charts vary so much is because of the biopsychology of color. Now, let's actually get into the biopsychology part because I've talked a lot about this word already and I haven't defined it. So biopsychology is the relationship between your biological self and your psychological self. It's basically how your body can affect your mental state and how your mental state can affect your body. I don't know if you've ever been really nervous for something. Maybe you're just about to go on stage to deliver a speech or something that just makes you really, really nervous. You start to feel your stomach churning a little bit. Sometimes you even get like a burning sensation down into your your stomach or even in your heart area, or even when you felt really embarrassed and you feel like that stomach dropping feeling, that is part of biopsychology. Your mental state, your mindset is affecting your physical state, your body, and vice versa. If you've ever had those moments where your blood sugar drops and you are really hungry, you haven't eaten in a while, your physical body starts to affect your psychological state, and a lot of people get angry. They get really irritable and angry because it activates certain parts of your brain when you have that blood sugar drop, when you are really, really hungry. And a lot of people call it being hangry because you're hungry and angry at the same time. So that is another example of the relationship that we have between our body and our mind. Now we're going to start with the psychological primaries, which is red, blue, and yellow. And again, I'm going to put timestamps down below on this video. So if you want to skip ahead to a particular color, you're welcome to do so. However, I would suggest listening to the psychological primaries first because they kind of bleed into all the other colors in the rainbow that we'll talk about later in this video. But let's start by discussing red. The color red affects us physically. It is physically stimulating as well as physically sedating, depending on the shade of red. So the lighter shade of red, once you get into more of the pink territory, this is going to be physically subduing. It is going to decrease your heart rate. There is a nurturing essence to it, and it makes you feel kind of cozy, comfy, and soft. But the deeper shade of red that we get into, if you get into a bold red or a deep dark red, the darker the red and more intense the shade, the more it is going to speed up your heart rate, and it is also going to activate your fight or flight system in your nervous system. Now, this is where red can be seen as threatening. It is increasing your heart rate, aka increasing your energy and your vitality and your ability to run away or to attack a predator at this time. And so in this regard, red is excellent if you really want that warrior-like energy into a spell. If you really need something to move, then you would definitely want to use the color red to increase that activity or maybe even throw out a threat to something that you're putting that spell off onto. Now, red also increases our hunger and our lust as well. So again, we're talking about the physical state right now. So red, like I mentioned previously, affects us physically. Blue is going to affect us mentally, and yellow is going to affect us emotionally. So we're all in the physical realm right now as we talk about red. But red increases the heart rate, it increases your hunger, it increases the lust, and the more bright and vibrant or dark the red is, the more that is going to be magnified. That's where you also see a lot of people using red for passion in an intimate relationship. And side note, you may actually notice if you look at a lot of food brands will choose the color red in their logos because it actually makes you more hungry. So you see a lot of pizzerias using the color red, and that is because it makes customers more hungry, and therefore they are more likely to buy and eat more of their food. Red also has the longest wavelength. We're going to get a little sciencey here for a second. Red has the longest wavelength that our eyes perceive on the color spectrum. And because of that, our eyes have to work a little bit harder to see the color red, and it also screams, pay attention to me, because with these long wavelengths, things that are red actually seem like they are closer in appearance than they actually are. So it really is like a pay attention to me. Red is feisty, it is fiery, it is up in your face. So anytime you need that oomph, that extra push of energy, red is going to be excellent for that. And again, as I mentioned previously, the lighter shade of red, once we start working into pinks, that's where you see this soften a bit, and it's a bit more like nurturing, loving, caring energy, great for self-love spells. There was actually a really interesting study done on the color pink on men, and pink actually was proven to reduce the heart rates in these men that were part of the study than any other color. So pink is really, really great for reducing the physical stimulation. So if you're feeling like really heated and angry, then pink is an excellent color for you to gravitate towards to help you kind of subdue some of that anger and really calm yourself down. So just to recap, red is going to be excellent for physical strength and stamina, passion, lust, vitality. It is also correlated to the root chakra, which is really about that primal state. Red is a very, very primal color. Now let's move on to the color blue. Blue affects our intellect and it increases the activity in your brain the more vibrant and the darker the blue is. Now the lighter the blue, the lighter shade of blue is more mentally subduing, but the key here is that blue affects our mental state by triggering our intellect. Now blue is actually the opposite of red in the fact that blue decreases your appetite, and it also reduces the physical stimulation while increasing the mental stimulation. Because of this, blue is excellent to use in mental clarity spells or mental focus spells. Specifically for mental focus, if you really want to increase the activity in your brain and really hone in on that focus, use like a navy blue or like a deep blue, something that's really striking, a cobalt blue, something like that. But if you were wanting to mentally soothe your mind, let's say you are extremely anxious, you have a lot of running thoughts, and you actually want to subdue your mind a little bit, you might want to use a light blue, because a light blue is going to be mentally sedating. It is going to be really calming and relaxing to the mind. But again, we're still in that realm of working with the mental state with the color blue. And because blue affects our mental state, it is also excellent for communication, because obviously thought processes and communication, they kind of go hand in hand. So if you have any sort of spells that revolve around the idea of increasing or bettering communication, blue is also going to be an excellent color to use for that. Now I did want to note that too much blue, too much of any color really, is never a good thing. You really want to have a good balance of colors around you to be really holistic with your health, but too much blue can be seen as aloof, standoffish, really cold and uncaring. It is a very heady, very mental color, so surrounding yourself with way too much blue can actually detach you from your physical body, and it can detach you from your emotions as well. So definitely make sure that you have a healthy mix of colors around you. Moving on to yellow, which is the last of our psychological primaries before we move on to additional colors. Yellow is very emotional. Yellow affects our emotions due to the wavelength, the size of the wavelength of yellow. Yellow stimulates our nervous system and makes us really happy and uplifted. So if you are somebody that struggles with depression, I highly recommend working with the color yellow. It's really going to help you lift yourself up out of that depression fog into more of a high vibration. I hate that word. I hate that phrase because it's used in toxic positivity. You know what I mean. It's very uplifting and happy. And today it's summer where I'm at right now. It is very, very hot. So I decided that I wanted to connect to the sun. I wanted to connect to the happy yellow vibes today. So I have my yellow shirt. I have my gold necklace. So you can even use your glamour magic in this way by just dressing up or using, you know, colors, however, to make yourself emotionally better. Now the tone of yellow also matters, of course. The shade, tone, all that stuff. It always matters when it comes to colors. But the more that we get into like a green yellow color, that's where things start to look really sickly. Nobody wants a green yellow, okay? So like a soft yellow is going to be really happy and mellow, and a more vibrant yellow is going to be extremely emotionally stimulating and almost excitatory. It makes us really, really excited when you see a vibrant neon yellow. Moving on to green, this color is a little bit different than the rest of the colors that I'm going to talk about, because if you think of the rainbow, green sits right in the center of that rainbow. And because green sits in the middle of that color spectrum, the wavelength is the easiest for our eyes to see. Whereas previously I talked about how red has a really long wavelength and it can be really difficult for our eyes to see it. We really have to work a lot harder to see it. Green is very restful. It is easy for us to look at the color green. Because this color is a very restful color, green is all about balance, harmony, health. It's really about the balance between your physical state, your mental state, and your emotional state. So I love using the color green literally everywhere because it is such a wonderfully recalibrating color, and it also reminds us of nature as well. Because of all this, green could arguably be considered the most healing color on the color spectrum because of how restful and restorative it is. Now we also have to consider the shade of green as well, of course. If you get more into like a blue-green, like a turquoise, obviously you have a little bit more of the intellect, the mental state from the blue with that green. So you're going to notice some stimulating effects mentally if you use a more blue-green color. And on the opposite end of the spectrum, if you use a green that's a little bit more mixed with yellow, and let's say you have like a lime green or something, that is going to be a very zesty and emotionally invigorating color. It is going to be very stimulating. So definitely pay attention to the shade of green and the shades of all colors when you're using them. Moving on to orange. So we are out of the psychological primaries and we are now into colors that are a mix of other colors. So obviously orange is a mix of red and yellow. So you're going to have some of the physical stimulation effects from red as well as the emotional stimulation effects from yellow. And those two together combine to make this very invigorating in the sense that it's very playful. Orange is almost like a childlike curiosity color. It is very playful and creative and fun. So anytime you are wanting to uplift yourself, whether it be physically or emotionally, orange is an excellent color to use. So if you're feeling a little blue, get it? Anyways, if you're feeling a little down, a little sad, I love using the colors orange and yellow. Sorry, that was a terrible joke. Anyways, I love using orange and yellow because it is very invigorating and energizing, whereas a soft yellow can be very, very happy. If you put in a little bit of orange, which just has like a hint of red in it, then you get that punch of the physical nature of it as well. You get some physical energy and it can really help if you're feeling sluggish or lethargic. I love working with orange. It's also related to the sacral chakra if you're into chakras. But yeah, orange is just a lovely, childlike, fun, energizing color to work with. Moving on to purple, I'm going to kind of discuss violet, indigo, and purple all as one category here when I say the word purple. But purple is the shortest wavelength. It is the last wavelength on the spectrum that our eyes can visibly see. And it's not very easy for our eyes to process the color purple. Like I mentioned with red, these are both colors that are a little bit harder for us to look at than the color green. And purple is also a mix of blue, so you have the mental state added into that, as well as red. You have the physical state and the mental state coming together to create purple. And because of all these things, purple really connects us to a higher realm because of the short wavelength, and it's the last one that we can visibly see. It's also related to our 7th chakra, and purple is combining the mental stimulation as well as the physical stimulation to give us this really spiritual color. Purple is excellent for spell work because typically when we are doing spell work, we are connecting to our spiritual selves. So a lot of people who are a little bit more spiritual in their personality might find themselves actually gravitating towards the color purple because it is the color of spirituality that we typically associate. And so purple can be used in divination. So let's say you are sitting down to do a tarot reading, you really want to contact your ancestors or some other deity that you work with, like lighting a purple candle would be an excellent thing to do. Or even getting a purple robe that you wear. Let's say every time you sit down to do some spell work, there is a special robe that you put on that helps you get into the right mindset or mental space, even though that's misleading for me to say because we're not talking about the mindset or mental space with blue. But anyways, putting on a purple robe can be really helpful because it intuitively puts you in that more spiritual place. Now, I've said this probably a million times in this video so far, but too much of one color is not a good thing. You always want to have balance. With too much purple, you might find that you become too introspective and you start to lose touch with your physical reality. So it's really good, like I've mentioned previously, to incorporate all the colors on the spectrum in your life and not just stick with one particular color, because you might find that you're going too deep in one area of your life and neglecting other areas of your life. And we are complex beings. We need lots of different types of stimulation around us. I did briefly want to touch on the shades of light, which are white, black, and gray. These are technically not colors, they're shades. So they don't have any sort of biopsychology effects, biopsychological effects, however you want to say that. So it's more going to be about your psychological perceptions of these shades based on the culture that you live in. So this is where you're going to want to look towards the cultural associations of white, gray, and black to see how it's going to work in your magical practice, as well as your personal experiences. I know that people typically associate the color black with nighttime, the unconscious realm. You can use it in ancestral veneration when you're working with death or working with spirits on the other side. And on the other end of the spectrum with white, a lot of people associate white with purity because it has a lack of color and it also has a lack of shade in it. And it also can represent innocence in a lot of cultures. I'm not really going to deep dive into all the prejudices that surround the colors white and black, but I encourage you to do your own research on that and see how culture has shaped the way that we view these colors. I think that's very, very important for each one of us to understand. And also make your own assumptions. Look at these shades and really assess how they work for you. A lot of people associate black with negativity and a lot of people associate white with positivity. I personally don't see it that way. So if you look at shades of light, just keep in mind that depending on the culture that you're in, there are going to be certain associations with white versus black. And without getting too political in a video like this, I'm just gonna say, please make your own assumptions and take everything you read with a grain of salt, because we're really talking about cultural associations and personal experiences, and both of those things are extremely subjective. So that was a really quick overview of the biopsychology of color. There is a lot more that I wanted to say, but honestly this video would be super long if I really talked about each color in depth, so I tried to keep it short and sweet. But just know that do a little bit more research on your own. There is more that goes into each color, and you also want to consider, like I mentioned in the beginning, the cultural associations as well as your personal experiences with each color, because that's going to change how you work with color in your magical practice as well. But I'm hoping that now that you know the biopsychology behind it and what it actually does to our biology and our psychology, you can take advantage of this and use it in your spell work to get a little bit more success. So definitely let me know in the comments below what you thought about this topic. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And also, if you've stuck around till the end of this video, feel free to comment your favorite color. I would love to see how many of us love green and purple, because I feel like everyone in the spiritual community loves green or loves purple. So let's see if you want to comment below your favorite color. And thank you so much for watching this video. I will see you in a video very soon. Bye.